And thank you for your testimony.
As the events have shown, Lafayette Square was a test run for what is illegal and ongoing crackdown by the Trump administration that is being inflicted on cities across this country, and attempts to escalate those confrontations.
Amen. Thank you very much for being.
We're here today really at what can only be considered Act Two of the Democrats' political theater regarding the events at Lafayette Square. Even just the nature of today's title, that somehow the U.S. Park Police attacked peaceful protesters, is ludicrous.
Member Bishop and members of the committee.
There was absolutely no correlation, no direction to clear the square for the president's photo op.
There is 100% zero correlation between our operation and the president's visit to the church.
On June 1st, by your testimony, you had largely peaceful protesters up until the time you actually forcibly tried to move them. Your decision-making process should have been based on the ground and what was happening on that day.
All of our decisions on June 1st were based on an on-the-ground assessment of the level of violence that was directed at law enforcement.
If I had acted this way when I was in the Marine Corps, I probably would have been busted down a couple of routes.
From what I observed, the demonstrators were behaving peacefully, exercising their First Amendment rights. At around 6:20 p.m., the Park Police issued the first of 3 warning announcements to the demonstrators, directing them to disperse. I did not expect the announcement so early, as the D.C. curfew was not to go into effect until 7 p.m. that evening, 40 minutes later. The warnings were conveyed using a megaphone near the statue of President Andrew Jackson, approximately 50 yards from the demonstrators. From where I was standing, approximately 20 yards from the demonstrators, the announcements were barely audible, and I saw no indication that the demonstrators were cognizant of the warnings to disperse.
Mr. Heiss, sir, you're recognized.
Based on my training and experience, at no time did I feel threatened by the protesters or assess them to be violent. And based on established U.S. military protocols concerning proportionality of force in dealing with civil disturbances, both within the United States and overseas, it was my observation that the use of force against demonstrators in the clearing operation was an unnecessary escalation of the use of force. From my observation, those demonstrators, our fellow American citizens, were engaged in the peaceful expression of their First Amendment rights. Yet they were subjected to an unprovoked escalation and excessive use of force. As the late Representative John Lewis said, when you see something that is not right, not just, not fair, you have a moral obligation to say something, to do something.